But there's nothing wrong with a whey protein powder in terms of food quality. That often gets a bad rap. People talk about, oh, it's heavily processed. It's really not. It's a byproduct of making cheese. So it's a waste product already that's being re-engineered, that we're using it as protein powder, but it's minimally processed. It's more processed than milk, I guess, but it's an overall a fairly low processing of food source. When you get into plant-based protein powders, pea, rice blends, those tend to have more processing involved just because it's harder to extract protein out from a plant source. They also can run the risk of heavy metal. So there's certain brands you want to follow that have lower heavy metal exposures in them. But by and large, it doesn't matter to me whether you're choosing a whey-based protein powder or a plant-based protein powder, because the most important aspect is that protein content throughout the day, or you reaching that 1.6 to 2 grams per kilogram body weight throughout the day, spread out. That's what's going to give you the best bang for your buck in terms of body composition. And just in terms of just general health, you lose muscle mass per year, you lose bone mass per year. As you age, it's more difficult to absorb protein. And so you just are trying to set yourself up for success in life as you age.
All right. Welcome to New York, Dr. Jackson. Even if virtually, I'm here in the Big Apple doing our podcast. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm glad to be in New York by virtue of you.
Yeah.
At least Eastern time zone. Welcome to that side of the world.
Yeah, exactly. At least you're in the same time zone. And most people would probably say, not all, but be like, hey, being in New York virtually is as close as I'd like to be, but we love the city, but most people are like, yeah, that's good for you. So,
yeah, right. I haven't been since COVID. So I've heard it's very different nowadays than it was 5 years ago.
You know what? It's not quite as bad. Okay. We literally were here in February. We'd already been 3 times, I guess, what was that, 19, whenever COVID was starting. And we were here when they were starting to cancel the flights and everything's about to get bad. We were leaving out, and we did not come back again for about 1.5 years. And we were worried that it had changed, because with, like we were just talking about, Abby, our youngest, living here, and part of the reason why she wanted to live here is because Jimla and I come here so much, and she loves the city. We were like, oh my gosh, is it going to be different and everything? But other than the cloud of marijuana that kind of follows you everywhere you go in New York, honestly, that's really the biggest change since COVID. Is like because the law, the recreational marijuana or whatever law changed over the last couple of years. And now, dude, it's just, you cannot escape it. It's terrible. But other than that, it's gotten back pretty good.
Yeah. We don't have a recreational marijuana law here in Asheville, but we still have the cloud every so often, it feels like.
Well, Asheville is kind of like the North Carolina version of Boston. So that doesn't really surprise me.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, today we're talking about something that I can almost guarantee you, as simple as it sounds, we'll probably get some of the most downloads we've ever had. We're going to talk about the perfect protein shake. And I'm pumped about that. So folks, Dr. Troy Jackson, MD. This is like a prescribed protein shake. This isn't just going to be any protein shake. And so I want to tell you kind of, what my foundational one is, as we go through this. But more than anything, man, I think this is a good conversation because, in my opinion, there are few things as far as meal replacement that you can do than a really good nutrient-dense protein shake. It sounds so silly, but dude, because you can just throw so much in at once and hide the bad tastes and get the nutrients that you're not going to get elsewhere. And I love it. So, and also, so the way this kind of came about, folks, you've heard us reference it a couple times. I was listening to Rhonda Patrick talk about how she doesn't put bananas in her shakes anymore. We've gone through all that through the oxidation. You can listen to mine and Troy's previous podcasts on endothelial health where we kind of talk about that. But, and so we got this idea, and Troy, he's like, no, hey, I've got it dialed in. And we were talking. And so thought, you know what, this would be a good episode just to let everybody know, here's what the protein shake is that you prescribe. And I think it's perfect too, because that's where the questions I get a lot. The things I get are always, what supplements should I be taking? What do you put in your protein shake? What do you do? What's your training routine? Though it always falls into that. So I think it's going to be something that folks will benefit from.
I write blogs pretty regularly for our office, and a few months ago I wrote one about a protein shake. And it's funny, I don't know if anyone reads our blogs that I write, but I will consistently get someone telling me that they read my protein shake blog.
Yep.
People love, I don't know, I'm not a celebrity. No one knows me outside of our office, but I think people like knowing what their doctor does. And
Hmm.
especially me and Dr. Vickery, who try to champion health in our messaging. I think it's just interesting that just to know what other people are doing. And it's like, okay, are they talking the talk? Or are they actually walking the walk too? And I love protein shakes or these smoothies that we're going to talk about. I think it's the closest thing that I would call a life hack. That I don't like hacking things, but this is pretty close to that, where you can shove a lot of stuff into something that's very simple, very quick, and easy to do. And I cannot think of a single downside or negative to it.
Well, and I'll tell you one of the things too that I equate this. I had, and this is kind of came to light this past weekend when I was at my folks' place. Is this is one of those things that, in my opinion, it's like salad dressing. Jimla and I don't buy salad dressing at the store. We're going to make our own dressing, which, a couple of years ago, probably I wouldn't have. I mean, it's like, man, I don't know how to make any salad dressings, but there's some good basic salad dressings you can make. And once you start making homemade salad dressings and you start to control the ingredients like any other cooking deal, you'll almost never want to go back to the industrial food complex to get it, because you start reading those labels. And it's the same thing with a protein shake. There are, I mean, a myriad of choices out there that you can buy that are already in the cooler, that you can buy mix, whatever. And like my mom has this, both my mom and my dad have this deal that they do, Troy, where I'll come home and they'll plop down some new supplement or protein shake or something and say, is this good? And I'm like, and I last time I left there, and my mom wanted to give me a couple of these. She had over ordered these Nutrisystem shakes or something. And I'm like, I don't want to hurt her feelings. I want to be kind. And so I ended up taking one. And I told Jim, I said, I've got to figure out how to approach this, because here's what they do to me. And I think I figured it out. I'm like, you guys always ask me what I think after you bought it. That when the damage is done, the money's gone. It's like, and I don't want to hurt your feelings and say, yeah, you just bought a bunch of, cheaply produced, mass produced crap. I don't want to tell you that. I don't want to burst your bubble. And so, but I would say that to the folks as we get this started, is like, and it's not all the case. I'm sure there's some good, clean stuff from Nutrisystems or Muscle Milk or whatever. I'm sure those can be fine, but I think you can really tweak and add to, and just like any other recipe, if you start making your own protein shake. And the cool thing is too, like I get creative. I think there's this kind of a baseline of, a few, foundational ingredients. Then you can just start piling on, and it's just so much better. So anyway, I think that's one of the cool things. So I guess let's just start out like high level, man. Are you in your smoothies that you make for yourself or that you recommend your patients who are trying to change their body composition? Are you doing it as a in between meals? Is it to be a meal replacement? Do you have like different smoothies or shakes for different things? Like, well, you want to boost your immune system? Here we go. You want to start getting some intermittent fasting? You want to lengthen you want to shorten your feeding window? Here's something in between those meals that you are eating. Like, what is your strategy? What are you using a meal replacement smoothie or shake for, Troy?
Yeah. So I don't like complexity, and so I try to keep things as simple as possible. In a smoothie, the whole idea is to be simple. So the first thing is, if you're making a smoothie, you're already doing something great for your body. There's nothing you can put in a smoothie, in my opinion, that you reasonably put in a smoothie that's going to be problematic for you.
Right.
If you're trying to work on body composition, especially with losing fat, I would use it as a meal replacement. and add a few things to it to make sure we're getting some fiber in there, some fat in there, carbohydrates. So it's kind of a good all-encompassing meal replacement as opposed to just a protein powder and milk, protein powder and water, which is fine as an additive to your day. I find that most people have a very light breakfast. And so it's an easy add-on as eat the breakfast that you normally eat if you're going to eat something for breakfast and do a protein shake. And that usually will round it out for people. It tends to be people's breakfast is quick. It might be an egg or two, it might be a piece of toast, it might be bacon. Like it might be just something that's just not a lot of well-roundedness. It might be for some not great choices too.
Mhm.
And so this is just an easy way just to fill it out and make it easy. That first signal of protein in the morning is very important from a muscle protein synthesis of a building muscle perspective. You're literally breaking that fast. Fasting technically is catabolic. It's a breakdown phase. And so if you're trying to work on body composition, improving lean mass, improving muscle mass, reducing fat mass, you want to stop that muscle loss in the morning. So it's a great way to kind of stop that process. Our F3 amino acids is another way that you can stop that process too. But some people wake up hungry, wanting something. This is a perfectly good option. Not a lot of calories to do that. If you are just trying to preserve and just maintain what you got, I think it's fine to use it as part of your day. So that would be technically 4 eating occasions if you're gonna have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and just add it to it. It's also another way just to, I'm busy at lunchtime. We'll just have a light lunch and just do a protein shake. So again, another way to round out your day. So I think of it more of like an add-on to a weaker meal of your day, or as a replacement specifically if you're trying to get as much nutrients packed into as little amount of calories as possible.
All right. So I'm glad you brought up the breaking the fast deal, because I know Tim Ferriss said years ago that like one of the easiest weight loss hacks is to get 21 grams of protein within the first 30 minutes of waking up. That's what he would recommend. When he's talking to people about weight loss, that's one of the things he's like, if I do nothing else, he said, if you just want to start with just one little thing, he said, wake up and get within the first 30 minutes, eat 21 grams of protein. What do you say to that? Good, bad advice, or just
It's fine. I don't think 30 minutes is a magic number.
okay?
So I don't, but like 21 grams of protein, if you're not going to drink it, that's kind of tough. I mean, you have to
Yeah,
eat food, and 2 eggs is 16. So you might have to eat eggs plus something else.
yeah.
You're going to have like a sausage or something that adds to that. But most people that I talk to on a daily basis aren't hungry when they wake up. It comes a little bit later. And so I think it's perfectly fine to wait. I think the idea is that you have something so you can stop that muscle breakdown, the catabolic phase that you're in, and kind of get the body started on building muscle or preserving muscle for the day. Nothing about the 30 minutes that I know of is important. I think he just means get something in earlier on and not wait until lunchtime. There are reasons to intermittent fast and skip breakfast and go to lunch. That's different than what we're talking about. If you're really trying to focus on muscle preservation, muscle building, reducing fat, having something in the morning is key, whether it's amino acids only or a protein shake.
One of the things that I tell people too and we've talked a lot about this, and whenever we're talking about essential amino acids, is the fact that most people are probably not getting the protein that they need. And, I can't tell you how many people I've told, you really should get at 1.8 to 2 grams of protein for every kilogram of body weight. And when they add that up, there's like, I don't want another chicken breast. I just don't want to do it. What am I going to do? Just eat some hamburger patties? I don't want to eat like Liver King or somebody just piles meat on their plate to try. And I'm like, well, a protein shake, especially when you combine the essential amino acids, which will give you like like to 25 grams of protein, equivalent of like whey protein or something, plus you're getting a protein shake in there. Now, granted, I think that, and I think you'd agree that if you can get your protein from whole foods, whole sources of, animal protein, that's what I prefer to get. But even I'm not going to do that. We've talked about that, our diets are so the Western diet being so meat heavy, vegetable small. If you're trying to like kind of reverse engineer that or reverse it where you're eating more leafy greens, something like maybe that 3 or 4 ounce piece of meat, you're not getting the protein intake you want from animal protein. I think a protein shake is just a great way to kind of fill that gap that most of us we just don't want to eat. It's weird to say, as Americans, we want to eat so much food, but when it comes to eating good, clean, lean proteins, yeah, not so much. People are kind of bad about getting that in.
That's not our craving, typically
Yeah,
speaking.
exactly. Right.
But there's nothing wrong with a whey protein powder in terms of food quality that often gets a bad rap. People talk about, oh, it's heavily processed. It's really not. It's a byproduct of making cheese. So it's a waste product already that's being re-engineered that we're using it as protein powder, but it's minimally processed. I mean, it's more processed than milk, I guess, but it's overall a fairly low processing of uh, food source. When you get into plant-based protein powders, pea, rice blends, those tend to have more processing involved just because it's harder to extract protein out from a plant source. They also can have run the risk of heavy metal. So there's certain brands you want to follow that have lower heavy metal exposures in them. But by and large, it doesn't matter to me whether you're choosing a whey-based protein powder or a plant-based protein powder because the most important aspect is that protein content throughout the day. Are you reaching that 1.6 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight throughout the day, spread out? That's what's going to give you the best bang for your buck in terms of body composition. And just in terms of just general health, you lose muscle mass per year, you lose bone mass per year. As you age, it's more difficult to absorb protein. And so you just are trying to set yourself up for success in life as you age.
So you mentioned some there like the soy, the plant, the rice, whatever pea protein. Do you have like a hierarchy of, okay, here's like the protein pyramid, and here's what sits at the top, and then kind of work your way down? Do you have something in mind that you kind of look at like, and if so, why? Is it due to digestibility? Is it due to and also, Troy, fill in any blanks like organic, like you mentioned earlier, processed. How do you decide on, this brand versus this brand? What are some things that people can look for when they go to, because buying a tub or a big thing of protein powder is almost like trying to, somebody asked me the other day about what's a go-to protein bar. Well, I mean, that's hard. There's a plethora of them. So how do you kind of rank order those?
So at the end of the day, it's getting to your total quantity. So that if you're like, well, I'm only gonna have plant-based protein powder, great. Then just get to the total quantity using it, and that's a wonderful tool for you to have. I think whey protein powder, if you put them head to head, whey versus plant, it probably wins out. But I think it's minor in terms of protein, in terms of like amino acid quality, the build of all the different 20 amino acids and their ratios, and then the digestibility of it tends to be a little bit easier on whey than plant-based protein powders. Um, I will say that plant-based protein powders for some people tend to be gentler on the stomach. So there is that caveat there, but that part doesn't matter to me. If you're going to do plant-based protein powders, I prefer blends. So you get that amino acid ratio and a little bit better than just a pure rice, a pure pea, pure soy. Usually it's rice and another thing blend. And I think those are fine. Again, I don't know brand specific here, but you can look, and some have testing for heavy metals and they ensure that they're low. I would go for that source. Of course, if you find organic plant or grass-fed whey, that's the best choice. Those can be harder to find. It can be more expensive, but you can still look for those things if you're trying to be perfect. But if you can't do that, then I would still just buy the protein powder because it's still going to be beneficial for you in the long run than not doing it at all. Then quality. So this part's a little bit tough. The way I think of it is when you look at the tub of protein powder, you look at the ingredients, you're just trying to find the least amount of additives. And the calorie limit there should be like in the mid 100s, 110, 130 for a serving. If it's 200, 250, it's got other stuff in it.
Gotcha.
Sometimes they will tell you this. It's a mass gainer. They put sugar in it. They put some other ingredients to make it more calorie dense. That's not what we're talking about here. You're just looking for whey protein isolate if you're going to do whey, which means it's just the whey protein. There's really not much added to it. Should be in that mid low 100s. And the protein grams, a good protein powder tends to be around 20 to 25 grams. If it says 10, you can find a better one for the same price. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
So just look for the 20. It probably doesn't have much else in there, and that's okay. Maybe a little bit of sugar, alcohol, or natural sugars to make it taste okay. Some flavorings, depending on what flavor you buy, but it shouldn't have much else other than that.
So okay, now let's get down. Let's start to drill down into like what yours is made of. Do you have a particular brand of protein powder that you like and why?
So I use the Thorn chocolate. That's my favorite one, just mostly because we have it here in the office and it's very easy for me to walk over and grab it.
Right.
Before then, I would use Ascent Native. I think they're a good company. Legion Athletics is a good company. Metagenics is good. On the plant-based side, Vega tastes the best. It's easy to find, but they're not organic. Orgain is a great company and they make a good product. The negative on there is that they use sugar alcohols, which some people that can be problematic gut-wise for. So, but I'm not searching the protein whey protein section. I know there's millions of them. I'm sure there's lots of great brands out there. You just pick one that meets the criteria you're looking for and just stick with it. And the ones you like, how that tastes. A lot of brands, just so people know, make sample packs. You have to go online often or maybe email the customer service. But if you don't want to shell out $50 on a 30-day tub, then you can email them and usually they'll send you a sample pack either for free or for just the cost of shipping. I've done that before and that's always helpful just to test out different flavors before you commit to one.
All right. So if you and I are together, we're at your house and you go, you know what? Let's go ahead and fire up the blender and let's crush a protein shake. What's going to be in it?
So for anyone, I'm going to tell you my recipe here in a little bit, but the foundation of a smoothie is fruit, a vegetable, water, and protein. And you can change that up depending on what you like or what you have in your fridge and you don't have. So I'll give you what I do, but that doesn't mean that it's the best thing out there. You can always tweak these things as long as you're fitting to that basic idea of fruit, vegetable, water, protein. And then there's some bonus categories, which is fat, fiber, powdered supplements, or liquid supplements. And that's kind of going to just take it to the next level.
Okay.
So when you're looking at, so we'll go through each component. How about that? So fruit. Fruit is the best way to mask flavors and to make it taste good. So if you're adding in vegetables and you're nervous about that you're going to taste them, fruit and then protein powder will be the thing that you use to mask any flavors. So you're not going to worry about it. For these, I do prefer that you're going to use an organic version because you're going to blend the entire fruit in there, the skin and all. And so that's where pesticide residue is going to be primarily found on. So I would look for organic versions. I use a berry blend that's strawberry, blueberry, blackberry, raspberry. There's also tropical blends that have pineapple and mango and some other things. Those have a higher glycemic load, but some people tend to like tropical fruits. That's fine. But berries, like we talked about in the last episode, have so many antioxidants and polyphenols, low on the glycemic index. They don't spike blood sugar as much. They have a lot of fiber. It's a wonderful fruit group, berries are. So I tend to stick with those and the organic versions, and you get them frozen. Colder smoothies taste better. And instead of having to put ice in your smoothie, which some blenders don't work well with ice, you can use frozen berries and it serves the exact same purpose.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest discoveries that I just found like not too long ago is the organic frozen that are fantastic. And I even found these organic frozen avocado chunks that to me that was like, oh my gosh, because I was always avocados just don't last that long, and they're kind of pricey to be honest with you. But I found some organic little avocado chunks in the frozen section where I buy all my frozen blueberries and stuff, and they're fantastic. And I just want to reiterate that too. So I know that this is kind of those deals like that comes out every once in a while that frozen vegetables are almost or sometimes better than fresh because they hold it in. Is that true? So is if people like if you're eating frozen berries, some people I hear they go, I thought frozen probably wouldn't be as good for me. Just as good as fresh.
Yeah, all frozen foods, frozen vegetables, frozen fruits are picked at the time of ripeness and frozen fairly immediately after. And so they're a perfectly good source of the food at its ripeness stage. It's not fresh technically because it's been frozen, but it's as close to fresh as anything else, especially if that food is out of season. So we are coming to the tail end of berry season right now in the summertime. So if you're choosing between the blueberries in your grocery store in November that was shipped 1,000 miles away or frozen all day. It's always
Okay.
going to be healthier. Usually it's going to be coming from a more, not necessarily local, but a regional source, America, for people who are listening that live in the US, rather than being shipped in. So I think that's a much better way of doing it from a
Okay.
fruit perspective.
Okay. Cool. All right. So we got water. We got the mixed berries that you're putting in there. All right. What else you putting in it?
So next one is vegetables, and this is the one that I get some eyebrow raises on, but it's this is where the smoothies are helpful because they're allowing you to get in vegetables that maybe you don't like the taste of, or you're not going to make or prepare them for the day because you're trying to make something quick. And this is just a really easy way to basically put a salad into your smoothie and be done with it. So the easy thing to do is spinach or kale as a green leafy vegetable. Kale tends to have a taste more than spinach does,
Yeah.
um, but it's an acquired taste, but it's fine. Frozen vegetables tend to have less of that taste. So if you don't want to use spinach for some reason, oxalate levels or something, you can always use a frozen, different something else, but frozen it tends to be better from a taste perspective. I use fresh spinach or fresh kale, whatever we have, and I just grab a handful and put it in. I don't measure it. It's going to blend in fine. You're not going to taste it because you put a lot of fruit in there and you're going to put some protein powder in it. So I wouldn't worry about it. But if you're new to this, just add a little bit at a time. You can be ridiculous and put one little leaf in there. That's okay. It's better than none. And then just slowly add it up over time. Other vegetables I add is what I do now a lot is riced cauliflower. You can buy bagged frozen rice cauliflower, and from a mouthfeel perspective, it's ice. You can't taste the cauliflower part of it. It just tastes like that there's little ice chips in your smoothie. And that's a great cruciferous vegetable to add. Frozen broccoli. I love the taste of cucumbers. So you can put that in there. You can put celery in there if you like the taste of that like celery juice type taste. So you can add a lot of different things, whatever you like. Beets, red beets is another one that people add. So you do what you want. And that's the beauty of this. You start simple, and then you can always add to, oh, I love these things. I'm going to add that in there and just try it out. Maybe it tastes funky, but it's not going to taste so bad usually that you're going to throw it away. You just won't do it again. Um, but so that's the easiest one. Those are the easiest ones to do, the ones I see most commonly in other recipes. But rice, cauliflower, and spinach is my everyday.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things that the biggest, and you mentioned it, one of the biggest smoothie hacks is using those frozen vegetables and fruits to keep it icy and just leave the ice out. And a lot of people listen to this. If you've ever made one and it's like, it's got that icy texture that's not good or whatever, then this really does. And then some of the smoothing agents that we've talked about, banana, avocado, Greek yogurt, there's some things you can, once you really start doing this, and it'll make all the difference in the world. And I'm the same way. Like I'll put frozen spinach in my smoothies for as long as I remember, and you don't taste it. Now the kale, you're right. Yeah, there's a little bit of something in there that I'm just not a big kale fan. I'll eat kale. I like roasted kale actually. That's my favorite way to eat it. But it makes all the difference in the world. And then okay, so that's kind of baseline. Now, one of the things I do want to ask you about, you said water. I use almond milk. Am I messing up by doing that, or is that fine? I mean, it's low calorie. I always do the no sugar added. Am I good on that?
Yeah, I'm lazy. So water is
Okay.
easier to put in the smoothie than soy milk, almond milk, oat milk,
Okay.
regular milk. Um, but you just need some sort of liquid because if you're using frozen berries and frozen vegetables,
Yeah.
this is going to get thick quick and it's going to lock up your blender.
Yeah.
So you use these liquid agents to try to smooth it out. I use water because it's just another way to add hydration to the day. You're going to get, I put 6 to 8 ounces pretty easily in a smoothie. And your food is also going to have water in it too. So it's a really good hydrating drink as well. It's
Yeah.
great to thin the smoothie out. So I'll put it in there to begin with to kind of get things going. If it's too thick, I'll add a little bit more. And then I do this because I'm a little bit OCD, but I pour the smoothie into my uh, blender bottle, and then I put a little bit of water in the blender and like swirl it around, and then pour that in. That kind of gets the residue that's left over in your blender into the smoothie cup as well.
Oh, that's smart. That's I'm all because I never do that. That's genius because I never do that, and yet I'm always worried, especially if I put my creatine in there and not in my coffee in the morning, where I know that I've consumed it all. I'm always like, oh my gosh, how much of my creatine is stuck to the lid of the blender? Which I think this it's not. We would be remiss if we didn't talk about hardware while we're talking about this.
Mm.
What do you use to make your smoothies and protein shakes?
So if you're just starting out, just use the blender you got. It might
Yeah.
not be great, but it's going to be better than nothing. If you get into this and start doing it more, I would invest in a good blender. You can use it for way more than smoothies. You can use it for a lot of different recipes like soups. But we use a Vitamix at our house. They're expensive, but they last forever and they always work. They pulverize everything from solid all the way down to liquid. So it's a really good option. You can put ice in there if you need to. There's Ninja makes a good one. There's some other good brands I'm sure out there, but we for the longest time we used a cheap blender that I don't the cheap blenders that you can buy for $30 for a while, and they were just fine. But when you upgrade to one of these other ones, you can tell a difference in terms of the quality.
Oh, 100%. We got a Vitamix that my parents gave us. And I will say that I make mine so thick that sometimes I create the little vacuum at the bottom. So it just starts spinning and and the Vitamix does it worse than anything. So I have to add more liquid than I want to because I like mine really thick. But other than that, I mean, the Vitamix is kind of like the Rolls Royce of blenders if you're going to do this. And then the Ninja Bullet is the latest version. Like I've got an old one, man. It's like only, I think it's probably 12 ounces. And then I've got like maybe a 24-ounce bullet. And that thing is awesome. And I love it because the thing I like about it is that, you make it and it's got the little rim you can screw on the top. You got your cup and everything right there all in one.
Mhm.
I love that sucker. And so, yeah, and I agree with you. Like for those out there, I'm starting out with a Hamilton Beach or an Oster or something like
There
that.
you go. Yeah, there's the brands.
Yeah, and if you start getting into it and you can burn those things up pretty quick, using them every day. But that Vitamix, dude, that thing's a workhorse. You're not going to wear it out. And when people do see the price tag, they're like, "Oh gosh!" I mean, it's like 200 and something bucks, but or whatever it costs. But it's like, hey, you could, I'll spend that on dinner tonight, in New York, and I guarantee you'll make up for it, over the years, and the thing will last. Okay, so there's our hardware. All right, now let's go back to you kind of gave your baseline. Now let's start kind of taking it up a notch, baby. Let's
Mhm.
as they say as the cool kids say, let's level up our protein shake, Troy.
Mhm.
So what are you gonna start putting in there to level up?
So when we're going to level up, we're going to use fat, we're going to use fiber, and then we're going to add in some supplements. So on the
Okay.
fat side of things, I like to use a fermented dairy product, so Greek yogurt or kefir. You can also use olive oil, nuts, or seeds if you don't want to use dairy. And this is, again, if you're trying to make this as a meal replacement, just adds a little bit of fat there. It also makes it creamier, so it has a better mouthfeel. And from a nuts and seeds perspective, I make a blend of chia seeds, ground flax seeds, and hemp hearts. You can buy all these things in a bulk bin. I just put them all together and mix it up in a mason jar. And I just use that a tablespoon or two, and that's a really great way of adding fat. It also adds in some other good fatty acids, a little bit of fiber using that blend. So that's a great way of doing it. For nuts specifically, walnuts or peanut butter, people will use to add different flavors. So from a fat perspective, this helps balance it out. If you're worried about blood sugar spiking because you use the tropical blend, um, fats mellow out a blood sugar spike. So you don't have to worry about that aspect of it. Um, and again, like we talked about in the last podcast, fats are good. There's lots of great fats we add to our diet. And these are everything I just listed are healthy fats. They're not going to contribute. The saturated fats from yogurt's not going to contribute to cardiovascular disease. The polyunsaturated fats are going to reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease. So this is a really easy way to add that to your daily regimen. Then I move on to fiber. And this is where I revealed my secret on the last video or the last podcast we did. My fiber source go-to for the past 6 months is beans. And it's probably weirder than the vegetables that we already covered, but canned beans is a great way to increase the fiber content in your smoothie without changing the flavor at all. And I promise you, if you use black beans, white beans like cannellini or Great Northern, and chickpeas, something like that, it's a very mild flavor. You won't know it's in there. It may thicken it up a little bit, but it's a very simple thing to add. If you did a fourth of a cup, that's 4 grams of fiber. A half a cup is 8 grams of fiber. I use a half a cup at this point, but I started with a fourth of a cup just to get used to it. But that's, I mean, when we'll get to the end where I talk about how many nutrients you can shove into a smoothie, it's pretty incredible. And this is the way that really bumps it up to the next level. If you have trouble with fiber, you might want to go slow on this part and slowly add it in there. But you can get your way up to this half cup of beans if you want to. You can use a fiber powder if you just don't believe me on the bean side of things. The nuts, I mean, the chia seeds, ground flax seeds is a great fiber source. So there's other ways of doing it. My personal opinion is that black beans tend to pair best with chocolate protein powders. Chickpea and the white beans tend to pair best with vanilla protein powder. So whatever you got, you can choose your bean source from there.
Well, one of the things that you mentioned early on in that description too, in the leveling up sequence, was that people probably heard and were like, well, really? Like olive oil, and that's one of the things that, again, folks, I put it in mine as well. Well, now my breakfast is amino acids and a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil. So I usually don't put it, but when I wasn't doing that, or if I don't do it, I'll put it in my smoothie and you don't even notice it. It's, again, the taste of olive oil is hidden. And that, to me, like a lot of these things, folks, you're just gonna have to trust us. Give it a try. It sounds crazy. You don't think about putting beans, which I still haven't tried that. I completely forgot about that, Troy. I want to put some black beans in my smoothie because I need more fiber. But you won't. It'll taste fine, and then you'll figure out how, what kind of texture you like. I like mine thick enough to eat with a spoon. So I gotta think that the beans are gonna help with that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
The last thing would be powdered supplements. And this is just the biggest complaint that we get in our office around supplementation is forgetting to do the powder version or the liquid one. I could do the capsules, but I just can't remember that powdered one that you want me to take. So creatine's always in a powder. So you can add a scoop of creatine to your protein shake and it's done. If you like powdered probiotics, you can put that in there. If you're doing L-glutamine, which tends to be a powder for the gut health perspective, you can put that in there. Greens powders, if you're nervous about adding vegetables. Reds powders, if you wanted more of those. Fiber powders, liquid omega-3s, trace minerals. These are the main things that we use that are powder-based or liquid-based in our office. Easy to add to the smoothie. It's not going to change the flavor at all. But you can get it in there and you know that you're going to have it for the day and not worry about forgetting it if you didn't do it right then and there.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I love most about a good protein shake is I'm going to get all the stuff that I just either I don't think I'm going to get from food, or I'm just going to make, by gosh, sure that I get it in and just pile it in. And I know how to mess with the flavors, and it's a game changer because, I mean, most people, and I'll tell you too, Gus and I talk about this a lot. When you get to the point where your body is more efficient because your metabolic health is getting better, your mitochondria is functioning with great efficiency, then you'll all of a sudden realize you don't need that much food, because once you're nourished, then you don't have those hungers like you used to. And so you don't have to eat a lot of food, and you can just pile it in this protein shake. And the really cool thing is too, a lot of things you're talking about are not calorie dense. So, I mean, for me to get my protein shake, unless I start adding the walnuts and stuff like that, that can shoot up pretty quick, and the avocado. But if you take the fats out of it and you really manage that, man, you can get a lot of satiation, just because it's a lot of volume that'll make you feel really nice and full with not a lot of caloric intake. And to me, that's probably what I love. I mean, my deal is I'm usually, like I said, I'm amino acids and olive oil, and I do still drink coffee with my heavy whipping cream early in the morning, 1 cup. And then for lunch, it's going to be my protein shake, and then dinner, and in between, I might have whenever my jaw's not all jacked up like it's been for the last couple months, I'm going to have some handful of nuts or something like that. But that's generally enough. And it's giving me a ton of nutrients, and it's great.
It's a great thing to think about for folks where their lunch is their hardest meal of the day because they're at
Yep.
work. Some coworker pops their head in and say, "Hey, I'm going to order from this fast food chain. What do you want?" Or someone's catering and they bring their food in, or someone brought food in. It's usually going to be cakes or cookies or something like that. And you're trying to be healthy. You're trying to not eat those things, but they're just inundating your office. This is an easy way where you can say, "No, I got something, I'm good." Or you're busy in the day and this keeps you from stopping at the fast food restaurant because you already made it. You made it that morning or the night before, still good the next day if you leave it in the fridge. These are just great ways to not have to worry about what am I going to do for lunchtime. That's most of my clients' problem is lunchtime. Or if I'm traveling, what am I going to do here? Well, you can pare this down real easily, so it makes it an easy travel smoothie as well. So this just helps you better navigate those choices when you feel like you don't have one. You now have one and you can rely on it. You can make it good enough where it's going to have enough calories to sustain you from lunch all the way to dinner time and not worry about it. And then also feel like you don't have to go get that thing or try to find the healthiest food item on the Wendy's menu because that's all you got.
Yeah. And also, isn't it true that, like, let's say that that you're going to go out for a big dinner, like I'm going to probably have tonight. Of course, it won't be that big since I still can't really chew food that well. But normally, when I'm here in the city, I'm going to go out and I'm going to have a big, just steak, and we're going to get dessert and all that crap. If you have a protein shake with, like you said, some of the fats in it, the whey protein and stuff, like 30 minutes prior to, not only will it curb your appetite and make you not want to eat as much, but it will also help regulate your blood sugar as well, right?
Yeah, so having a blend of protein and fat helps balance out the blood sugar spike. And it's really the fall, the crash is what gets people. That's when you start having those hunger, cravings, food seeking behaviors when the blood sugar is crashing. The problem in people who are eating refined carbohydrates, processed carbohydrates, sugar, it's not packaged with those things. You have candy or something like that. And it spikes, crashes, spikes, crashes, spikes, crashes out the day. And so you constantly feel like you have to snack on something. You constantly are having brain fog or fatigue because of that crash. But on a protein shake, you're never going to have that. If you're wearing a glucose monitor, you may see a bump in your numbers, but it's not going to spike and it's not going to fall quickly. It's going to be this nice even hill that's going to last and sustain you for hours. And that's thanks to that protein signal. Protein is very satiating, meaning it makes you feel fuller longer, even at a similar volume of something that doesn't have protein in it. So you'll feel fuller longer, and it requires energy to burn. So you actually burn a little bit of calories in the process of breaking down your protein. So it's really a great way of just bridging if you need to. You mentioned eating a really heavy dinner. Maybe you want to take it light on lunch then to give you a little bit of reserve so you can enjoy dinner to its fullest. Perfectly fine to do. All life is about balance. And so you pull back at lunchtime, you have a light protein shake, and that sustains you to dinner time, and then you can enjoy the mess out of dinner, not really worry about overeating.
One of the things that you've talked about the last couple of times, we've talked about in protein shakes get brought up. You talk about Greek yogurt, which I love. And that's the thing. I want to find out if I'm overdoing it, because that's my dessert every night. I've become addicted to non-fat, plain Greek yogurt with some organic strawberry preserves. Dude, I will eat that before I'll eat like ice cream. But here's the thing, Troy. I am probably eating, I bet I'm eating at least 2 cups, maybe more, 2.5 cups of Greek yogurt as my dessert. Is that bad with all that bacteria? Am I overdoing it, or is it just am I doing anything wrong? I guess that's the thing.
No,
Talk
no,
to me
you're
about
doing
it.
good. It's expensive. I'm sure you buy Greek yogurt twice a week.
Yeah, at least. Yeah, yeah. We're, our Greek yogurt budget's gotten pretty out of hand.
It's a
Yes.
separate line item in your budget, right? But
Exactly.
you're not gonna overdo it from a bacterial, like gut bacteria
Okay.
perspective. I wouldn't worry about that.
Okay, that's what I was kind of worried about. And I like the fact it's helping to make sure I get that protein in there at the end of the day. But I do worry about jacking up my gut health, which seems to be terrific. And by the way, I did my gut biome deal, but there was a vial that went missing from whenever I sent it in. And so they sent me a new one, and that should be in the clinic pretty soon. So we'll be going over, Gus and I'll be going over my full report, because we could only get through like a small portion of it. So it'll be interesting to see how the whole thing looks here pretty soon.
Yeah, we'll see what the Greek yogurt bacteria looks like.
Yeah, exactly. Gus is going to be like, wow, dude, what's going on in there? Well, all right. So, well, good deal. What else do we need to cover? I mean, we didn't want to overdo this, but I just think it's such a cool tool to have in your kit, especially like what you and Gus are constantly helping people with the body composition, or as you get older and you're just not going to eat as much, you don't have the appetite, protein's tough to get in. I thought this would be a great thing to discuss in depth.
It's fun and simple. I do want to talk about the difference between a juice and a smoothie.
Yeah.
I think this comes up a good bit. So juicing had its heyday. Everyone owned a juicer like in the 90s, I think, and and juicing, the benefits that were touted about doing juicing is that it really concentrated antioxidants, very healthy. It's almost like drinking your own vitamins. And that's true. It does concentrate antioxidants. The problem that comes with juicing is that it's also a very big sugar load. And so if
Yep.
you've ever looked at a nutrition label on a healthy quote unquote juice brand, the sugar will be like 28 grams, 30 grams, 50 grams of sugar in a serving. Well, a serving is like that one bottle. Well, the recommended amount of sugar for a day is less than 20. So you're overdoing it in that one drink. And I mean, we're all eating sugar at least in some form throughout the day, whether we are trying to or not, because it's just put in everything. So that's just not great for our bodies. It's a massive blood sugar spike and that crash that we just talked about. And you're missing everything that you're dumping out of it at the end, all that pulp and stuff. That's all the good stuff.
Yep.
That's a lot of that fiber there. So you're dumping out all the good stuff. You're drinking good stuff, but you're also combining it with sugar. If you've ever made orange juice at home before, to make one glass, 8 ounces, that's a ton of oranges, way more than you would normally eat. And I do find it funny, these juice companies that make these juices, they're like, in this one bottle, we have 6 apples and 4 mangoes and 3 kiwis and 12 strawberries. And you're like, yeah, but I would never eat that in a sitting,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I would try because I love those things, but I would never get there. I would never finish it off. And so that's not really a natural way of eating. With a smoothie, maybe you eat a little bit more than you normally would, but it's really not because you're just putting the entire fruit in there. So if you have a Ninja or a Vitamix, you can put an entire apple and it'll pulverize it. You won't even know it's in
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah.
So basically the foods that you eat the skin of, I would just put the whole thing in there and it'll pulverize it down to nothing. But you're getting everything. Those antioxidants that you're getting in the juicer, but you're also getting all the fiber, all the water, the whole package of one thing. So I think juicing, that fad is gone. There's still some people clinging tight to it. The smoothie fad, I think it's here to stay. Like I said at the very beginning, I don't really can't come up with a negative about it. It's very simple. So I just don't see it going away or this health fad that's going to fizzle out. I think it's here. So we all have to embrace the smoothie.
Yes. Embrace the smoothie. Don't fight. Don't fight it. Uh, well, how about Steve Jobs? Talk about juicing. How he went through this phase where he would only drink carrot juice. Like that's like all he would drink, and like to the extent they said that he started turning orange for a while, and then he would only eat apples. That dude was so extreme, and like he stunk because he wouldn't bathe, he wouldn't use deodorant, he only uh, ate carrots, I guess, and drank carrot juice. It's like, wow. So
I mean, maybe he was
there's,
onto something. He did invent the iPhone.
there was something about it. I've always wondered with somebody like, I'm completely getting off topic here, but somebody like Steve Jobs, because Wozniak's the guy that had the real technical brains. Like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Was Steve Jobs really, really successful because he was just like, his reality distortion, field that he was like, I'm going to go the way I want to go no matter what. And that's what made him successful. Or did he have a few good breaks, even given his eccentric behavior, and then became the wealthier, more powerful he got, the more eccentric he got. I mean, I think he was always pretty eccentric. You read Walter Isaacson's
Mhm.
biography on him; he was a pretty eccentric guy. But I'm always impressed with guys that are just able to just live by their own rules like that. I mean, I'm so between the don't color outside the lines guy that I can't do it. But man, I always wonder that, I don't know.
Yeah, that's how I am. I'm a very literal person. I'm a realist at heart. That's why I like. I think you're way more visionary than I am. So I like hanging out with you and definitely Gus. Gus is just
Yeah.
crazy visionary because it makes me think that all these things are possible and
Yeah.
maybe half of them aren't. But I'm gonna like it makes you all want to strive to reach that. And I think that's what Steve Jobs and even Elon Musk does. Like they seem crazy to the outside world, but in their companies, at least historically, the reason their companies are so great is because they thought it could be that way. They
Yeah.
literally thought outside the box. They had another person, a Steve Wozniak type person who figured out how to do it. They're really the brains behind the whole operation, but they need direction, right? The
Yeah.
brain needs the direction to go, and the visionary needs the brain to figure out how to do it and to complete it.
Well, yeah, you're definitely the one that helps keep Gus and I grounded because we will just freaking let the idea fairy fly, buddy, and
Yep.
we got all kinds of things going on. Well, man, I think this is beneficial. I mean, I think this is good. I hope that people and what we'll do in the show notes, I'll be sure to include some of the recipes and some of the brands, even the Ninja and the Vitamix, so that people want to go check it out and put together their smoothie kit. And maybe you and I, maybe I'll come up to Asheville and we'll do a protein cooking show.
Yeah,
We'll
a
do
smoothie swap.
a smoothie swap. I like that. Let's see who can. Yeah, I like that idea. We'll do that. We'll let Gus participate. We'll bring James in, and maybe bring. That's what we should do is come to the clinic, have some of y'all's patients come in, and do like a blind taste test and see who can make the most appetizing smoothie. I like that.
I like it. I do want to leave the
Yeah,
audience. I'll put my smoothie recipe in there, and I hope you put your
yeah,
green monster recipe in there. But I
for sure.
calculated out what my smoothie recipe is in terms of nutrient content, and let's see here. This is off of MyFitnessPal, so this it's not fully accurate, but 437 calories. That includes I put Greek yogurt or kefir in it. 37 grams of protein. That's only one scoop of protein powder. So the rest is coming from other things. 18 grams of fiber, over half of, or close to half of my daily amount of fiber for the day is in that one smoothie. And then off the charts on vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. So that's my protein smoothie. If you wanted to make it less calories, you could knock out the Greek yogurt or the kefir. Uh, let's see on my list. That's probably the big one. Maybe not if you're doing the banana or the avocado, you can knock that out, the nuts or the seeds. And you can get this thing down to 200, 250 calories in total. And that most of that, 120, 130 calories is coming from the protein powder. So you can drop this down really easily, but I would only do that if you're really trying to limit calories. If you're not, just trying to use this as a meal replacement because it's a better choice, then 430 calories, 37 grams of protein, 18 grams of fiber is a really, really solid lunch. or breakfast.
That is all right. So I'm glad you brought that up because I actually have mine in MyFitnessPal. I forgot, and I don't know if I've got all the details that you've got, but they're pretty close. 430 calories is the total. 19.5 grams of net carbs, 13.5 grams of fat, 50 grams of total protein because I double up on my scoops and put some extra stuff in there. Saturated fat, 3 grams, 70 milligrams of cholesterol, 290 milligrams of sodium, 10.5 grams dietary fiber, 12.5 grams of sugar. Let's see here. 68.6% calcium, 1.2% of my daily allowance of, of vitamin D, 15.7% of my iron. I don't know where it's getting this, maybe because of the protein powder I use of the actual brand.
Spinach was probably your iron source.
There you go. 705 milligrams of potassium, and I think that's all the detail I have. But just for the as far as the macros are concerned, the high level stuff, it's 430 calories. Let's see, 19.5 grams of carbs, 13.5 of fat, and 50 grams of protein. So that's kind of we're pretty close, man.
And you're 10 grams of fiber. If you added those beans in there, those are your other 8. So you got 18.
Exactly. Yeah, I need that. Okay. Very cool. And I will say, MyFitnessPal, it's free. And what a great way to just kind of keep up with this stuff. And it's good too. Once you log this and you have it, because what people that are listening to us, I can guarantee you it's kind of the 80-20 rule. You will end up, using 20% of your total ingredients 80% of the time. Your shake, you'll just fall into something. And then you can put it in MyFitnessPal, just boom, log it, and it just makes life so easy. Very good, dude. I like it. All right.
I will also share a link we can put this in the show notes. We have a way of getting discounts through Thorne. So I've mentioned Thorne protein powder. They also have glutamine, creatine, lots of other greens powders. So there's lots of things there. So if you want to use it, it's 20% off link that I'll put in the show notes as well that we get because of our clinic.
Fantastic. Well, I tell you what, I am going to take leave of you. I'm going to go for a walk in Central Park, and then I'm going to come back to the hotel, and I'm going to work out, and then I'm going to go all the calories that I'm about to burn. I'm going to go replenish them as best I can with my still somewhat jacked up mouth with my daughter and her boyfriend. And I would love to find a good protein shake. I did not bring my powder with me this morning, so I'm kind of chicked that I didn't. So I got to find something.
Yep. Well, you have fun.
All right, Troy, appreciate it, folks. Thanks for listening. I'm Jason. He's Dr. Troy, and we are out.
The content provided in this podcast, The Healthy CEO, is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The opinions expressed by our hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Healthy CEO. Any information provided by our hosts or guests, including any physicians who may appear on the podcast, is solely for informational purposes and does not create any doctor-patient relationship. Listeners are advised to consult with their healthcare providers before making any changes to their health routines. The Healthy CEO and its affiliates assume no responsibility or liability for any consequence resulting directly or indirectly from any action or inaction you take based on the information provided in this podcast.